Well, good afternoon. This is Senator Pat Roberts. Thank you for taking the time to join me on our live town hall meeting via phone, or what we like to call Chat with Pat. Now, I want to hear from as many of you as I can about the issues that you care about. You can always add me on Facebook and Twitter to see what we are fighting for every day in your behalf. Now, if you'd like to ask a question, here's how it works. Simply press 0 to ask a question right now, or at any time during the call. Easy deal. Press 0 to ask me a question. Now, this call will last for the next hour. I'm going to try to get to as many questions as possible. This is a live call, and it's official in nature. So if we can keep the campaigns and the politics on the back burner, that's the thing that we should be doing. Again, for those of you just joining the call, this is Senator Pat Roberts. I am hosting a pre-live town hall meeting via telephone, what I like to call Chat with Pat. Press 0 at any time during this call if you'd like to ask me a question. Now, folks, first, allow me to update you on what I've been doing in your behalf. Last week, I was privileged to meet the Heartland Honor Flight at World War II Memorial here in Washington. I never missed a chance to welcome veterans to their nation's capital and to their memorial, and Bob Dole makes every effort to do the same. Honoring veterans in this way is an important reminder of the sacrifice so many Kansas men and women continue to make so that we remain free. As the senior Marine in the Congress, I have long fought to ensure our military heroes receive the care and the benefits that they deserve. We've got a lot of issues about backlog claims, coupled with the heartbreaking news about the Arizona Veterans Administration, the hospital there, and now we are hearing other instances around the country. This is just simply tragic, and also it's unacceptable. We must do better for our veterans. While Congress holds hearings and investigations of these specific cases, I have joined my colleagues proposing legislation that I believe would improve the Department of Veterans Affairs and the delivery of health care and benefits to our veterans. Likewise, I support an independent investigation of the Veterans Administration. We have to find out what went wrong and why. And we have to find out who is responsible for the decisions that led to inattentive care or unscrupulous practices. And we must hold them accountable. We have to hold somebody in this administration accountable. And yes, that should include the possibility of criminal charges. But most importantly, we must fix the problem so that veterans receive the care they deserve and that this nation owes them. You can rest assured I will continue to fight for the over 200,000 veterans that we have in our state of Kansas. Again, for those of you just joining the call, this is Senator Pat Roberts. I am hosting a free live town hall meeting via telephone, what we like to call Chat with Pat. Press 0 at any time during this call if you would like to ask me a question. Today I join fellow Senate Republicans in calling for a special select joint committee to investigate the Obama administration's handling of the terrorist attacks in Benghazi. Now, simply put, Americans deserve the truth about Benghazi. The families of 4 Americans who were murdered deserve the truth, and yet the administration continues to deny and evade. That's why the Senate must appoint a Senate Select Committee to investigate the administration's handling of the terrorist attacks in Benghazi without further delay. I call on the Majority Leader, Harry Reid, to follow Speaker Boehner's leadership in the House. If they have nothing to hide, why the Majority Leader should not be afraid of this investigation. Again, Senator Pat Roberts, I'm conducting a live teletown hall meeting. Please press 0 to ask a question. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the hard-working airmen at McConnell Air Force Base and all those in the community of Wichita who have strongly supported the base on the recent announcement that McConnell will be the first Air Force base in the nation to fly the next generation tankers. Wichita is truly fueling freedom. I am very excited to see this long overdue upgrade become a reality. I want to thank all of those who have joined the call today and have been part of the McConnell family, those who fly, operate, and maintain our tankers, and all of those who support our men and women in uniform. I look forward to being at McConnell next month for the groundbreaking ceremony to celebrate this announcement and welcome the KC-46. Again, this is Senator Pat Roberts. I'm conducting a live town hall meeting. Please press 0 to ask a question. Folks, I've been very disappointed by the Fish and Wildlife's decision to list the lesser prairie chicken as a threatened species. Now, you're going to ask, in the Wichita area, what on earth is that all about? During the listing process, to list the lesser prairie chicken as a threatened species, I used all means possible in my position to discourage the Fish and Wildlife folks from listing that bird. This listing, which became final just this week, will have a tremendous negative effect on our economy in Kansas. Hard to explain, but while wildlife conservation is a well-intentioned cause, we all know that, we also must remember that people are our most valuable resource, and the federal government should not be in the business of threatening Kansans' way of life. Already, hard to believe, oil and gas producers have been forced to make major business decisions in order to continue oil and gas production in Kansas, where that bird is threatened, about 35, 40 counties. And our farmers and ranchers in Kansas fear that this listing will force them to idle agriculture production, despite the fact we're in the third year of a drought. In regular order, we would look to the appropriation bills to defund these agencies, or say, I'm sorry, to the Fish and Game folks and say, hey, you can't spend the money for that. But that doesn't happen in the Congress today. Unfortunately, we hope this year will be different. But somehow, we have to find a way to relieve folks from overly burdensome and costly regulations, regardless of what part of the Kansas economy we're talking about. But I'm sorry to say that the Majority Leader, Harry Reid, does not allow the Senate to operate in regular order. Did you know that Republicans only had 8 votes since last July? And today we had a big fuss over the tax extender fight. We need to have the tax extender bill passed, but Harry Reid would not allow any Republican amendments, and so this was not possible. Again, this is Senator Pat Roberts, and I'm conducting a live teletown hall meeting. Please press 0 to ask a question. Finally, we turn to the IRS. Boy, continued problems. As you know, the IRS has had its share of problems. In fact, it's been 1 year since we discovered they unlawfully targeted conservative groups for extra scrutiny, trampled on their First Amendment rights. Just yesterday, we saw more proof of this outrageous behavior with the release of internal IRS emails showing clearly that the IRS Washington headquarters was directing the targeting, not Cincinnati. We are still investigating this wrongdoing. I'm on the Finance Committee. We're investigating. I'm fighting to clean up the IRS and to hold people accountable. Now, despite this scandal, the IRS went on to propose regulations that would have put this abuse of the First Amendment rights into regular practice. I led the Senate fight against these regulations, and the IRS Commissioner recently announced they would have to rewrite the rules. So far, we won that battle. Now, you may have also seen the news recently that according to an investigation by the Treasury Inspector General, close to $3 million in taxpayer money was awarded to IRS staff. Get this. They violated tax laws or owed back taxes or were guilty of drug abuse. So I introduced legislation to prohibit the IRS from providing performance awards to employees who owe outstanding federal tax debt or who have violated U.S. tax law. 9 other senators have signed on the bill, more coming. I'm not going to relent until we end these bonuses. This week, as the Senate debates tax legislation, I am pushing to add my bill as an amendment. And last week, I sent a letter signed by all of the Republicans on the Senate Finance Committee, which demands a full accounting of employee rewards at the IRS. Folks, this is not a partisan issue. It's just common sense. The IRS should not be in the business of awarding bonuses particularly to its agents who are unable or unwilling to abide the very tax laws they are directed to uphold. That's outrageous. As the Senate debates tax reform, I am fighting for the changes that will help you keep more of your hard-earned dollars. In fact, just this week, we were happy to receive an award from the 60 Plus Association for my efforts to eliminate the death tax. That's the estate tax. I'm honored to receive that award and very proud to continue the fight to get rid of this egregious double taxation of income. Again, Senator Pat Roberts conducting a live town hall meeting. Please press 0 to ask a question. First question is, we have Gene from Park City.
Yes, Senator Roberts. Got a question for you. Do you think the Senate will ratify the UN Arms Treaty?
Not on my watch, it won't. The United Nations has developed into a bureaucratic boondoggle. We got about 195 countries in the UN. This is not your dad's or even your grandfather's UN. Currently, the administration is pushing for ratification for the UN Arms Trade Treaty. I don't think the UN is the appropriate venue to regulate anything, especially the Second Amendment rights of folks in the United States. So I am a co-sponsor of a Senate resolution opposing the Arms Trade Treaty. We have 36 co-sponsors. We need more. Additionally, last year, I joined 50 of my colleagues in writing to President Obama to reaffirm our commitment to oppose that ratification. Hopefully, that will send him a very powerful message to the administration. This treaty is not going anywhere in the Senate of the United States. Thank you for that question, Gene. John from Wichita.
Oh, hello, Senator Robertson.
Yes,
first
sir.
of all, kudos on your opposition of those bonuses. I'm 110% behind you on that. In fact, I don't think any government agent should get a bonus. If their salary isn't worth the job, they can open it up. But anyway, that aside, my question is, what's the Senate doing to make sure that those Benghazi-type affairs don't happen again? And will the panel that you're trying to put together, would that try to get into that? And then second question is, when will you be back home in Dodge City, Kansas, so that we can see you live?
I don't know about seeing me live, if that's any great thing. I would certainly enjoy it, and we'd sit down and have a good visit about Benghazi. I'm going to be back in Kansas these next 3 days. Unfortunately, I won't be in Dodge City. I'll be in the Hutchinson area and in several counties there. We have a wonderful opportunity to speak to the American Legion at a very important time in our history with our national security policy. But rest assured, we'll be in Dodge just as soon as we can to get back home. I have not forgotten, I know you haven't forgotten, what happened in Benghazi or the way this thing has been handled. It's been a tragic situation. Earlier this month, several new developments occurred, John, that resulted in Speaker Boehner over in the House finally initiating a joint select committee to investigate the handling of this tragedy. Today, I joined several of my colleagues in the Senate, writing Senator Reid, Harry Reid, the majority leader, to urge he appoint senators to serve on this joint committee without further delay, so it would be a bicameral study or investigation. Since September, I've been calling for a joint select committee to investigate the attacks, and we were on the original legislation that was proposed. Now, here's the deal. The recent emails released from the White House only confirm what I think most people have known to be true. The administration was fully aware of the misleading talking points used by Ambassador Rice. Once more, White House aides presented a final draft of what she should and should not focus on during her infamous Sunday show. That's 5 days after the attacks. That's 5 days after everybody knew it was a terrorist attack. So to ensure the administration does not forget this tragedy, I have repeatedly called on the President to be really forthright with the American people and the families of the 4 Americans killed. I asked that the President explain how this tragedy happened on his watch during his State of the Union address. Obviously he didn't. In 20 months, the American people and Congress still have unanswered questions. 20 months. So I applaud the work by the Senate Intelligence Committee, which produced a very informative report and I applaud the multiple committees in the House which held hearings, but questions remain. So now's the time for a joint select committee. Let's get this behind us. Answers for the 4 Americans killed. Answers for all those serving the nation overseas who now question if the United States has their back. I am tremendously worried, John, about the morale of our troops and that sacred bond that really created the greatest fighting force in the world. If you get in harm's way, don't worry, we got your back. We're still waiting answers from the administration, but the important thing is we're not giving up. Thank you for that question. Next question, please. We have Mark of Wichita.
Hello, Mr. Roberts. How are you?
Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah, my question is this scandal in Arizona, the veterans, 40 patients died. They were awaiting treatment. You know, my hat's off to all of the veterans and everybody in the military currently. And, you know, something needs to be done. We need to take care of our veterans and all people that are in the military.
Mark, this is a terrible tragedy, and it's outrageous. As you indicated last month, a Phoenix, Arizona VA hospital physician came forward with allegations of 40 deaths caused by long appointment wait times. And now we're hearing of other instances all around the country. Simply put, this is unacceptable. It's outrageous. We have an obligation for our veterans. Now, Congress is going to hold more hearings and investigations on these specific cases. I've joined my colleagues in proposing legislation that I think could help. It would improve the Department of Veterans Affairs and the delivery of health care and benefits to our veterans. And I think we need an independent investigation of the VA. We really have to find out what went wrong and why. We have to find out who is responsible for these decisions that led to inattentive care or these unscrupulous practices. And we've got to hold these folks accountable. And this should include the possibility of criminal charges. But most importantly, we got to fix the problem so veterans receive the care they deserve and that this country owes them. You can rest assured I will continue to fight. We've got 200,000 Kansas veterans. What happened in Phoenix and what apparently happened around the rest of the country is simply unacceptable. Thank you for that comment. We have Rick from El Dorado.
Yeah, I was wondering about your problem that you have with not being a resident of Kansas anymore.
Yeah, well, Rick, that's not the case, old friend. I'm glad you asked me that question, and let me take just a moment to clear up the facts. Monday, a state elections board unanimously dismissed objections without merit to my candidacy on the grounds that objections had no legal basis. I want to tell you, Rick, I more than meet the legal and constitutional requirements for residency in the state of Kansas and always have. Home is where the heart is, and my heart is in Kansas. My home's in Dodge City. I own a home in Dodge. I declared my residency there 30 years ago because of the support and the kindness the people of Dodge have always shown me. I vote in Dodge. I pay property taxes and income taxes in Kansas. I represent the entire state. I look forward to continuing my listening tour where I get to all 105 counties. We're 3 short. We're going to do that this next weekend. I've been to 102 of the 105 counties. We'll get to the 105 here real quick. Despite this state schedule, I rarely miss a vote in the Senate. Now, Rick, I want to emphasize something to you, and I want you to remember this. I am a 4th-generation Kansan. My great-grandfather founded the Oskaloosa Independent, second oldest in the state. He fought to make the state a free state. Quantrill came over, tried to burn the Oskaloosa Independent down. He came out in front with several shotguns and a posse behind him, and Quantrill went back to Missouri. I want to tell you that this Marine has picked up that fight and has never stopped fighting for Kansans. So our crazy schedule in the Senate is one of the reasons I am grateful for venues like this where I can take your questions and speak directly to you about the issues of the day. I am a Kansan, always will be a Kansan. Always root for the Wildcats. I don't have to get into that. Next question. We have Tilly from Wichita.
Yeah. Senator Pat Robertson. Really, out of all the questions I have, first I want to commend you, and I hope that all of these issues that you have brought up are so very important to me and to my family, and I hope that you will work with them. And here's what I wanted to ask you, because there's two things really, but it's also about benefits to our veterans. How are we doing in Kansas? Are we doing our job in Kansas to help our veterans, or do you still need to do some work there?
We do have a backlog, more especially in the Wichita VA.
Yes.
In Kansas, our veterans wait on an average of 138 days for their benefits claims to process. 45% of the veterans' claims inventory is over 125 days old. So thank the Lord we don't have a situation like they did in Phoenix. But this is really unacceptable. The VA is working internally. They tell us all the time, everybody in the delegation and the governor, that they are trying to improve the benefit system. But we got to do more. That's why I'm a co-sponsor of the 21st Century Veterans Benefits Delivery Act. That's a lot of words. But basically what it does, the bill proposes 3 areas of improvement. First, to the claims process, to more accurate and timely decisions, and then to the other things that we really have to work for as well. Now, you can just rest assured, as I said, I'm the senior Marine in the Congress. I'm going to continue to fight for our veterans, ensuring they have access to the benefits, to the benefits they deserve. But we do have problems in Kansas. Thank you so much for that, Tilly.
You're welcome.
We have Jay from Wichita.
Hi, this is Jay from Wichita. My question was, we recently passed a law for the people that have a concealed carry license that the firearm no longer has to be concealed. I don't think this is good. You walk down the street and it looks like the Wild West. And I don't think it's good for our children, and it's not good for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think you're talking about a state issue. I'm not aware of any federal action on that yet. I do oppose efforts to deny the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens, but I think on your concealed carry legislation, that is a state matter. We have Lori of Wichita.
Yes, Senator Roberts, I was just wondering what kind of I don't pay a lot of attention to the news. I listen to it, but I was unaware of any award that you received from the 60 Plus program or whatever it was. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, for a long time, I think the estate tax is a double tax, and I call it the death tax. Now, we were able, several years back, to prevent a big tax increase with the Bush tax cuts. That was the existing tax code, and along with it, we increased the exemption on the estate tax up to $5 million. President Obama had lowered it down to $1 million. Well, every farmer today would be in trouble with that, or any small business. At any rate, on the death tax, my record is clear. I have always and will continue to support its repeal. It's a double tax. It's on people's hard-earned income and assets. It's especially tough for farmers, small business, ranchers. That's their main asset, their business or their land. So the current tax makes it very difficult and expensive for them to pass on their legacy to their kids. We need to repeal the death tax. Now, the award you're talking about, it's called the Benjamin Franklin Award. It is by the Guardian of Senior Rights Organization, and they score votes to cut spending and to protect Medicare and Social Security. So 60 Plus is a conservative senior citizens organization. That's the outfit that gave me the award for our efforts to repeal the death tax, and also to be a guardian for senior rights. I hope that clears it up for you, Lori. Just a reminder, Senator Pat Roberts, a live teletown hall meeting. Thank you for taking the time out of the afternoon to join me. Please press 0 to ask a question. We are limited on time, but we're going to get to as many questions as possible. Press 0. Next question. Delana in Mulvane.
Yes. Thank you for taking my call. I'm 86 years old, and I have 64 great-grandchildren. And I am concerned about this Common Core that they're putting in schools. Do you know anything about it, and can you take care of it and stop it?
Well, we're going to give it a go. Delana, you have 64 great-grandchildren. Is that right?
Yes, I do, and I have 2 step-great-great.
My goodness. Well, my congratulations to you and your wonderful family. I'm a member of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. That's called the Health Committee. And I am fully committed to fighting what I call this administration one-size-fits-all federal education agenda. I believe local control is best when it comes to education. There's been a defiance of federal law. The Obama administration began coercing states to implement Common Core. I opposed the stimulus program. That was the coercion. And I've long fought the federal intrusion from Race to the Top, where now that's where the bulk of Common Core federal funding came from. You know, we haven't even had one hearing on Race to the Top in the Health Committee, not one. This all comes from executive orders from the president. Recently, we introduced a bill to explicitly prohibit the federal government's role and involvement in Common Core. The Learning Opportunities Created at the Local Level Act, boy, is that a mouthful, that's Senate Bill 1974, that would strictly forbid the federal government from intervening in a state's education standards and their curriculum and their assessments through the use of incentives, mandates, grants, waivers, or any form of manipulation. So I think we're very hopeful that we can put a stop to that and that we can have local control as best control. And thanks so much for your call from a wonderful family. Bob from Wichita.
Yes, Senator. Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Just had a quick question for you. Coming out of tax season, every year I say to myself, there's got to be a better way to do this. Would you support a flat tax or a fair tax system?
I'm already for it. I'm already on it. And let me tell you why. With the way the IRS has been conducting its business, or not conducting a business, 70% of the folks that work for the IRS got a performance benefit increase. It seems to me we ought to just rip out the current bloated tax code by its roots and start over. This tax code is 2 feet taller than I am. We need to get the IRS out of our lives in this federal intrusion. We need a new tax system, one that is not so complex or so burdensome. We need a tax system where everyone, all income levels, has skin in the game. We need to build a system that doesn't penalize savings and investment, one that encourages growth and innovation. So I signed on as a co-sponsor to the fair tax. The fair tax is simple, it's straightforward, it's easy to comply with. It will reduce burdens and be a fairer system. So as we work toward reform of the tax code, this one's on the front burner. It's not on the back burner anymore. We're going to take a hard look at it. If there are problems with it, why, we'll deal with it. I hope that we will consider some of these innovative ideas. And thank you so much for the call, Bob. We have James from Wichita.
Yes, Senator. I would like to see you impose a flat level, no more than we take in spending limit on the president, because this guy's just taking out our credit card and he's bashing Bush for what he did, and he's doing worse.
Well, James,
that's comment one.
Yeah, okay.
And my other one is I've got a friend who's a former vet and cannot hear very well, but they're denying him his disability. I would like to be able to give him your direct number in D.C. so he can call and tell you what they told him?
Well, let's go with the last part first. I want you to call my Wichita office.
Okay.
And that's your office. We can get started working on your problem right away. I'm sorry about your friend and his difficulties. Let's see what we can do to help. Now, here's the number, 316-263-0416, 0416, 316-263-0416. Call and ask for Mel or Tamara, and they'll pick that right up, and we'll see if we can't be of help. Now, with regards to controlling spending, my goodness, we're headed toward $18 trillion in debt. Just to pay off the interest is astounding. We're going to be paying more in interest than we are for defense in this country. So I've long supported a balanced budget amendment. I think that would help do the job. We've come close to passing it in the Senate in the past. The amendment is I think, a good way to start to get our ship of state back on sound fiscal waters, and would bring needed discipline to the federal budget. Now, will it pass? Well, I'm sorry to tell you it isn't going to pass in the current Senate, where Harry Reid, the majority leader, controls the agenda. He is a one-man rules committee. We have had eight votes granted the minority, the Republican Party, since July. Only 8. I tell you, there are people like Senator Byrd from West Virginia, who has passed, but he always was a guardian of minority rights. This is supposed to be a two-way street. So I look forward, if it's possible, to a change in the Senate, and a balanced budget amendment should be one of our first orders of business. Thank you for that, James. I appreciate it. We have Leslie of Wichita.
Yes, Senator Roberts. Thank you for taking my call. I was wondering about how the Keystone Pipeline is going. Are we going to have to wait till Mr. Obama is out of office before this gets through? Because it sure would help the state of Kansas.
Oh, Leslie, I'm so tired of this, and I know you are too, and it doesn't make any sense from so many different standpoints. They have repeatedly delayed the final approval, note I said final, of Keystone. The project would support about 42,000 jobs. It would provide 800,000 barrels of oil per day from Canada. Way back in June, the President indicated he would not grant final approval of Keystone if it would exacerbate carbon emissions. Well, the State Department has already indicated the construction of the pipeline will have no measurable impact on increasing global carbon emissions. Now, Leslie, this thing has been reviewed over 5 years with 5 environmental impact statements concluding it's safe. The project makes sense economically, environmentally, and from a national security perspective. We need to get this thing moving. Now, what do you think Vladimir Putin would think if we opened up Keystone and then we took the ban away from selling natural gas to Europe? It would take away his ace card. He wouldn't be on the world stage anymore. So from a stable world, from a standpoint of national security, this also makes a great deal of sense. And I appreciate the call. Thank you, Leslie. We have Charles from Wichita. Charles, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for taking my call. And I was just interested in wondering how we can get the Environmental Protection Agency under control, and how can we get President Obama to stop using the executive order for everything to bypass the Senate and the Congress? And another thing, how can we stop elections from being bought with big money?
Well, let's take the EPA first. I'm sorry to say that I think the Environmental Protection Agency, with the administration's backing, has declared war on fossil fuels. In terms of energy, I'm for all the above, but we can't just declare war on fossil fuels. That doesn't work. I was talking with Senator Joe Manchin the other day, and I said, I'm sorry about your coal production. It must be down. He said, no, it's up. We're sending all the coal to China. And you know that the Chinese are taking the coal and building a so-called clean coal plant every week. Every week. And I'm not sure that that is a real clean coal plant, but it's adding to the CO2, and it just doesn't make any sense. As our nation continues to face high unemployment, with folks struggling to make ends, I know that that number went down, but there's a lot of people that have just, given up, that they're not really looking for work. But the last thing we need as a country is for our executive branch to unilaterally pursue policy that will make our most abundant and affordable energy resources unavailable. Now, let me talk about the executive overreach just a minute. The President is taking a more than lenient approach to executive orders, very aggressive. He simply looks at the House of Representatives. He knows that most of his agenda is not very popular over there. It's not very popular over here among a lot of folks, but he does have a majority over here, and he has Harry Reid to determine what bills can be considered and what bills can't be considered. So we've got a bill called the Enforce Act, which stands for Executive Needs to Faithfully Observe and Respect the Congressional Enactments. That's a lot of fancy words, but the bill would allow the House or Senate, by adoption of a resolution, to authorize civil action to seek relief on unconstitutional overreach by the executive. We have so many. I tell you what, Charles, I can't come back home without somebody complaining about overregulation. It's the number one issue that we get. I think most of the Kansas delegation gets the same thing. And here we have all this overregulation. Many times I'm not even aware that that regulation exists, and neither does the person who got fined for the regulation. So we have to do a better job in the Congress to stop all these executive orders. I'm not going to let up on this. If we would do our appropriation bills like we're supposed to, and it hasn't been done for 5.5 years ever since Harry Reid became the leader of the Senate, you could stop their money. That does get their attention when you do appropriation bills or the spending bills and say, I'm sorry that you can't spend money for this. Now, you have something called a Congressional Review Act and a whole bunch of other things that we have at our disposal, but if the majority leader will not allow us to bring it up and even have a vote, the Senate is not the Senate. That's a real problem for us. Just a reminder, Senator Pat Roberts, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me. Press 0 to ask a question, and if you're interested in receiving updates from me on a regular basis, you can press 7 to subscribe to my e-newsletters. Why don't you go ahead and just do that? Press 7, as well as pressing 0. First press 0, then 7. How about that? And a member of my staff will take down your email address. Press 0 to ask a question, 7 to receive the e-newsletters. Next question. We have Bruce from Wichita. Bruce, are you there?
Yeah. Senator, I'm a very strong fan of yours and voted for you and met you several times. I sometimes am disturbed or just your harsh and strident attitude kind of bothers me at times.
It bothers my wife, too.
Well, I think you're doing a wonderful job, but
Well, Bruce, I'll tell you why this is happening.
I just like to see more pleasantness in the whole process.
All right, let's be pleasant, Bruce. Let's just sit down and have a visit here. First of all, I'm a man of conviction. I believe I've been elected to represent with ardor and with strength, every ounce of strength that I have for the people of Kansas, and to defend the Constitution. I think our country is headed in the wrong direction. So I do tend to be strident, more especially in defense of the Constitution, and more especially what I see as a Marine, what's happening with our national security, and a host of other things. It just seems like, in terms of overregulation, that we have a government that is not really governing. I think it's ruling, and I think it's an idea that government knows best. That local folks at home here, people like yourself, that somehow we're not trusted anymore. And then I'm very irritated at Harry Reid. I know Harry Reid, dating back to when we were on the Ethics Committee together. My gosh, this man's changed. And he won't allow any Republican amendments on the floor. Well, look, I had at least 3 amendments on the last Farm Bill. And I asked Kerry, I said, why are you not allowing me to introduce these amendments? Well, time's up. Well, that's not an answer. And so if I get strident, I guess I'm just, pretty frustrated and pretty upset by the way things are going. And I can tell you, when I listen to folks back home, you think I'm strident. At town hall meetings, boy, do they give me a hard time. And I guess that lights the fire in my belly. I've always been a Marine. I've always wanted to take the hill. We have a saying in the Marine Corps, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Neither is Marine Corps policy. Maybe that's a little much. So we'll try to settle down a little bit and don't be so strident, and we can get our point across. And I've always been one to try to work with the folks across the aisle if I can. But right now we're shut out. That's a good question, Bruce, and I appreciate it. Brent from Pratt. Hey, Brent from Pratt, where are you?
Yeah. Hello there, Senator Robert.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. First of all, I want to start out by saying, you're a Marine. I want to welcome you home, and I'm a Vietnam vet, 1967, with the 173rd Airborne Brigade, and us vets ourselves have started the welcome home, and it is catching on nationwide. And for once, in God knows how long, the Vietnam vets are feeling like part of part of what this great country's all about, from what happened to us, in the years of the unpopularity of the war. But anyway, saying that, I'm moving to Benghazi. I want to know how long, what it's going to take until someone has to take accountability for 4 Americans being murdered. And it was not over some cartoon or movie. It was lack of us giving our people protection, which is sovereign American territory, just like they have here. And I'd like to know how much longer, and I know you guys are working on it, but the country has got to stay and be interested in finding out what happened and who's accountable for it.
Well, Brent, the real bad thing about this is it sends such a terrible signal to our men and women in uniform that if they get in harm's way, that we won't have their back. And I don't know why the president and the administration doesn't get that, but that's a pretty bad omen for our national security, not to mention the men and women in uniform who serve us and enable us to be free. I have not forgotten what happened in Benghazi. My question started off with, we had actionable intelligence, long time before this happened. The British left, the Red Cross left that area. They asked for more security. Good gracious, the embassy was attacked twice. We were warned by the Libyans. Who dropped that ball? Why on earth was the ambassador and his assistant even there? Why was it necessary for the CIA folks to send 2 more people down to get murdered? I don't understand why they were there. I don't understand the policy reason as to why they were there. Then, all of a sudden comes this story about a movie video. And the movie video didn't have anything to do with it. Following that attack, the very next day, the president knew it was a terrorist attack. And so did, I hope, the Secretary of State, Ms. Clinton, and a lot of other people as well. I know the Secretary of Defense did, and I know our intelligence agencies did, and yet 5 days later, 10 days later, there was the president in front of the United Nations saying, oh, we're going to bring him to justice, and we're going to have this movie producer, prosecuted. And then of all things, we bring these folks back, and there are the families. And here we have the president and Hillary Clinton saying to the families, don't worry, we're going to bring people to justice, and that'll be that movie producer that we're talking about. That movie producer had nothing to do with this. It had everything to do with a terrorist attack. I don't know how people could say that to the people of the family. So I'm extremely concerned about this. The Senate's Intelligence Committee did a report on it, very critical. we now have a joint committee, a select committee, over in the House. I'd like to have the Senate take part in it. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I do credit Speaker Boehner for finally saying, whoa, we're not going to do this with 5 committees, we're going to do it with a select committee. And I hope we don't see any members of those committees on television. I hope they're working hard, trying to get the communication and the evidence needed as to who is accountable, and then we can hold them accountable. Rest assured, this Marine is not going to, I'll never forget Benghazi until we get the answers, and then we ought to really hold that up as an example. Thank you so much, Brent. We have Lisa from Augusta.
Hello, Senator. So good to speak with you. I more closely identify myself currently with the Democratic Party, so I do disagree with some of the things even the folks have said. I am a veteran myself, and my passion really is for our government to work together. And you did just mention it, and I'm really interested to hear modeling behavior. I'm laid off, and so now I substitute in schools, and there's so many issues. But I'm really interested in knowing how and what's going on with Democrats, Republicans, everybody. What's going on with people working together, even though we may have different viewpoints, to do what's right for this country, what's profitable and what's right. Are you currently engaged in working across the aisle, or do you have anything going that I could get behind and support as an American more than identifying myself as a Democrat?
Well, sure. I'm all for bipartisanship. In the House, I used to reach across the aisle when I had the privilege of serving the 1st District, and now as a senator. And I've always enjoyed reaching across the aisle. It's just that when I'm reaching now, there's not too many people reaching back. And even if they do, and we come together, like we did on the tax extenders bill today, what we wanted is just a couple of amendments on our side and some on their side, some on the Democrat side. Harry Reid wouldn't allow it. And I don't know, he's just a band conductor for whatever the administration wants. I'm not trying to point fingers at him, that's just what he does. We've only had 8 Republican amendments that we voted on, and I know for a fact there's a lot of Democrats on the other side that are eager to work with us. That's how things are done or how things are not done. Right now, for example, I've joined with Democrats on a new tax policy plan directly to help small businesses grow, and it's a bipartisan effort. So I'm always trying to encourage my colleagues to find common ground on important issues rather than just pointing fingers and hollering at each other. I mean, that's not getting us, anywhere. Last month, bipartisan legislation that I authored was signed into law. It wasn't a partisan issue. It was a common sense solution important to rural communities. That was in a farm bill. Last November, we passed a compounding bill. I have been reaching across the aisle for support for a long time to ensure that your prescription drugs are safe, and it worked its way through the House and Senate, finally signed into law. The Senate can speak as one voice when we passed a resolution that I introduced that recognizes the importance of biosecurity and agro-defense in the United States. We're going to have quite a facility over there in Manhattan when that finally gets done. We had a water resources bill. We had legislation, let me think a minute, to ensure doctors' payments are at a level to sustain patient access. That's critically important to us. If we don't have the Medicare reimbursement to doctors, a lot of doctors won't, they won't see, Medicare patients, let alone, Medicaid patients. Student loan legislation. We set permanent interest rates for all the newly issued loans, so we gain banks and the student loans certainty for students and parents who are struggling to finance higher education. But, you can only go so far. I had 3 amendments to the last Farm Bill. So did Senator Thune, so did Senator Grassley, so did Senator Johanns from Nebraska. We held off those amendments so they would be considered on the floor so we could get it done quickly and work with each other. It could have been far too long that we had held up a farm bill. None of us got amendments. they were not made in order. Well, shucks. I mean, you can only go so far. But I'm rather proud of my bipartisan efforts to work with my colleagues, especially on the committees that I serve. Your point is well taken, by the way. Again, Senator Pat Roberts, I have time for a few more questions, so stay on the line. Now, at the end of the call, I'm going to transfer everybody's voicemail where you'll have the option to leave your question and comments along with your name and address, and I promise to get back to you. And if there's an issue you'd like help with, remember, call me at 316-263-0416. That's really your office. Or visit with me at roberts.senate.gov. You can also add me on Facebook or Twitter. So add me there. And let's have the final questions, please. We have David from Derby.
Yeah, hey, Senator, every day we hear something about Medicare and Social Security is going to go bust because all our baby boomers are retiring. And, they don't stop to take in account for all the IOUs that are in there that money had been taken out of by Congress to appropriate for other things and never paid it back. When Clinton was in office, he had a surplus, and when he got out, they spent the money, Bush spent the money. But another thing, how many people die every day that would have drawn Social Security benefits that won't be drawn because they're not alive?
Well, obviously, if they're not alive, David, they're not going to receive any Social Security benefits. But let me make it real clear. Any Social Security reform proposal that will be considered by the Congress, and it will not be considered during this election year, I can tell you that, that would not, none of the proposals that I've seen on either side of the aisle, Republicans or Democrats, would impact current or near-term retirees. Nobody over the age of 55. But we got to work to ensure the long-term solvency of this program. You're right. There wasn't a cigar box sitting behind the Speaker's chair way back when I served in the House where the money went to there, and then it went to a strong box so it could be used for Social Security. It was spent. And it was spent under Democrat Congresses and under Republican Congresses. Not a good idea. There was an effort to have a lockbox kind of situation where all the money coming in with regards to Social Security would stay right there, and that would ensure the viability of Social Security. That didn't happen. That's for our kids and their kids. So during my service in the Congress, I've really tried to fight hard to protect and strengthen both Social Security and Medicare. Medicare is going to become the more immediate problem. You know that Medicare right now is owed $1.5 billion in our community hospitals because outside contractors have come in, fined our community hospitals for regulations they didn't even know it existed. And now if you appeal, you can get it back, usually 70% of it back, but they've stopped the appeals process. So they've already taken $1.5 billion out of our rural health care delivery system. That's ridiculous. So I think my record shows I have voted to decrease wasteful government spending and ensure that Social Security funds will not be used to offset the costs of other programs. You raise a very, very important topic. Thank you, David. We have Jim from Derby.
Yeah, Senator Roberts, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
I just want you to know that I'm one of your most ardent supporters. And you mentioned Joe Manchin a while ago, and I've known Joe Manchin, his family, his father and mother, and his grandparents, and he is for the state of West Virginia like you're for the state of Kansas, supporting the carbon fuels and everything. And Harry Reid is just thwarting everything that he can do to prevent growth in the oil and coal industry. And
Jim,
I think the Congress, the House of Representatives needs to step forward and do something to put an end to that.
Well, I think we have support in the House. Thank you for mentioning Joe Manchin. We just heard a question from a very nice lady who said we need to work together. I can work with Joe Manchin any day, any time. He's a great guy. By the way, he just lost his mom, and so I think he's back in West Virginia on that errand of mercy. But at any rate, he's quite a senator. I wouldn't call him a Democrat or a Republican. I just call him an independent for West Virginia, and he's pretty proud of that. But I don't know. I can't quite understand why Harry Reid, who I do know, by the way, he's a boxing fan, and his favorite boxer is Smokin' Joe Frazier. So I always, when I want something, I call him Smokin' Joe. But Smokin' Joe hasn't been very helpful lately with regards to amendments that I would like to add to bills, like every other member of Congress, or pardon me, the Senate. The Senate is different from the House in that there's not a Rules Committee, but today Harry Reid is a one-man Rules Committee. And that's the problem. And we need to change that. And honest to goodness, I don't know how we're going to do it. Right now we are holding up a lot of bills, trying to tell him, fine, we'll be for the bill, or we will at least debate the bill. Anybody can vote for it or against it. But please allow us to have amendments. If you don't, it's just a one-man rule, just a one-man party rule, not the thing that we need in the Senate. Thank you for that question, Jim. Jesse from Colwich.
Yes, sir. I wondered if you would talk a bit about Bob Dole. I know he's on a lot of our minds and touring Kansas and such a legend. And I was curious what lessons we can learn from him and just what your thoughts are on Mr. Dole.
Well, let's try integrity, let's try leadership, let's try perseverance, especially on perseverance. I talk to Bob at least once a week. I have known him ever since I've come to public service. Bob is over 90. He's pretty frail, but boy, I tell you what, his mind is sharp as a tack. Here I'm going on my listening tour, thinking we might get a little press. He comes back out to Kansas, over 90. Goes to 10 or 15 counties, and you couldn't find Roberts anywhere, but there's Dole everywhere, again. And what a wonderful thing. He comes back, and I tell you, people come out of the woodwork that remember him or something that he has done for them, or his example, his courage, what happened in World War II and how he overcame those injuries to lead the Senate longer than any other Senate leader. He is truly a great, great Kansan and a great personal friend. I'm so proud to know him. Jesse, thank you for that. Again, Senator Pat Roberts, thank you for tuning in this afternoon. Now, for those of you who had a question and we were unable to get to you, you're now going to have the option of leaving a voicemail where you can leave any comments or concerns along with your name and address. We'll get back to you. Remember, along with your comments, just leave your name and address. Don't do that, I won't know where to send you a response. If there's an issue you need help with, remember, that's your office in Wichita, 316-263-0416, or simply visit with me on the web at roberts.senate.gov. For those of you on Facebook and Twitter, you can find me there too, so please add me for your daily updates. Thank you again so much for participating in my teletown hall meeting tonight. It appears that my time is up. Thank you for yours.